working harder, plus our kids are working. And that's all well and good. We're playing by the rules, and we just want everyone else to play by the rules, and we think that the middle class shouldn't be overburdened by paying for everyone else's good deed. Whether it's health care, whether it's welfare, or whether it's anything that government does, we have to work for the middle class as opposed to having the middle class work to provide everything for government.
Correct. Now let me ask you, you said that the legislature is working for their own people.
Yeah.
And we have Senator Cream, who's a practicing attorney who is also vice chair of the Judiciary Committee. Do you see anything wrong with a practicing attorney serving as a legislator passing bills that would affect her income or any of their income?
Yeah, I do.
Directly?
There's a conflict. There's a conflict of interest. And I'm not saying that legislators can't have part-time jobs or other jobs. And so I don't want us to become a government of only the rich, where only rich people can afford to serve because everyone else can't. At the same time, you've got to check your private parochial interests at the door. And that's why the system doesn't work, because people put their private interest or their associations. Now, it might not be Senator Cream herself, but if she's working on behalf of other defense attorneys in the divorce world, she's being impacted by just one group of people. It's like the party. It goes back to the party stuff. If you're being impacted by just Democrats and you're elected to serve, and you're only working for Democrats, that's 37% of the people, which means there's another 63% of the people that aren't getting serviced. If you're a Republican, it's 12%, which means you have 88% of the people that you're not representing. As an independent, my goal is to represent everybody. And I think the legislature should be focused on that as well. It's okay to work a part-time job, it's okay to be an attorney, as long as you don't put the interest of your private professional life ahead of the people's life and the people's well-being, especially when it comes to passing legislation that makes sense, that makes common sense, and it's the right thing to do.
Are you in favor of pay cuts?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Well, you know, either pay cuts or pay freezes, I think, is important. We haven't raised salaries in Treasury for, I think it's 3 or 4 years now, and our budgets are lower than they were in 2007 prior to the recession. What I would like to see happen, as opposed to pay cuts necessarily, is shrinking the budget, shrinking the workforce, so we have less employees not filling positions.
Would that be from the top, highest pay
top
down to the
lowest? We just did that in our pension fund. We just hired a new executive director at $80,000 less than the previous executive director got, because we understand it's tough times, and we understand that the salary is still very good, but we didn't think it needed to be as good as the outgoing executive director, especially right out of the gate. So we practice what we preach. And I don't fill positions if they don't need to be filled. And if they do need to be filled, they don't need to be filled at the same salary level. Someone starting out in government can make less than someone who's got 20 years experience. So if that 20-year experienced person retires, you're replacing them with someone that's not as experienced or just new to the business, you pay them what you can afford to pay them. And I think what we need to do in government is bring salaries in line with the private sector, especially, and benefits as well, because we can't afford to give people more than we have money for, and we're not going to borrow to do it.
In the healthcare section of it, do you support giving the public the right to seek alternative providers and have it covered, let's say chiropractors or any?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think people should be able to get health insurance coverage from companies that do business outside the state as well as inside, so we open up competition. I think people should be able to choose more of their healthcare decisions and not be told by the big insurance companies who they can go to and what hospital they can go to, what doctor they can see. Alternative medicine should be part of regular medicine, and I think anything that brings down the cost of medicine and helps with wellness, if we can make someone, not just fix someone's broken leg or back problem, but also make them healthier in the process so they don't have to come back more often, then I think that's a good thing. And that's one of my major goals, is to bring down the cost of healthcare for small businesses, for individuals, and alternative medicine, and giving people more choices in terms of what they want to be covered for and what they need to be covered for as part of that.
The current administration, Governor Deval Patrick, publicly stated on 2 occasions that he was going to form a committee to investigate the problems within the probation department and also within the family probate court system. Do you see the Department of Revenue working, which is a part of the executive branch of government, working within the judiciary branch of government? Is the Department of Revenue too big of an organization?
It may be. It's something that we'll look at when we take over, if we take over, knock wood here. I think that what we need to do with probation is move it back into the judiciary. When the legislature sort of moved control of probation outside and gave itself oversight, that's when the system broke down. That's when patronage became overwhelming, and it grew to proportions that much exceed anything else we have in government. So when you do that, and this happens often in government where the legislative or the executive branch, so the governor wants to take probation and put it under the executive. I think it should go back to judiciary. Even though I'm running for governor, I don't want I don't think the executive branch should have that responsibility. And we need to separate out the branches as much as we can and allow them to do their work within budgetary limits. Judiciary must be held to the same standards, but not punished if they don't do what certain elected officials want them to do or hire who certain elected officials want them to hire. We think we need to have separate responsibilities. That's the way John Adams wrote this Constitution. You have the judiciary, the executive, and the legislative branch. What happens is people want to step over each other's boundaries and responsibilities, and then they get into these personal fights. We saw that happen with casino gambling, where the personal overrode the political and what the needs for our citizens are, specifically jobs and revenue. And it got into this political battle between the governor, the Senate president, and the Speaker of the House. And guess what? The people lost. We lost jobs, we lost revenue, and we lost time, because all that time spent trying to figure out what to do all came out for nothing when the governor decided he didn't like the finished plan.
And the people are always losing, which brings me to my next question. The people have bailed out the bank industry.
Yep.
People have bailed out government. What will the administration of your administration do to bail out the people?
Well, as I said earlier, we're going to work for the middle class, because they're the only ones that haven't been bailed out. In fact, they're the ones paying for these bailouts, because the middle class pays for most of the taxes that are produced in government. The high-end folks avoid taxes. The folks at the bottom don't pay taxes. People in the middle, between $50,000 and $250,000 salary, small business, they pay all the taxes. And it's high time. They're not looking for a bailout. They're just looking for equity. They want to keep a little bit more of their money. In a Cahill administration, we will try to lower the cost all across the board in business and not pick and choose our favorite industries or what businesses will succeed and which ones won't, because I think that's the wrong kind of power for government to have. I believe that government should step back, not decide who's going to make it and who's not, but set a level playing field so that everyone has opportunity to make it. I started my own small business at 22 when I was right out of college, because I couldn't get a job. And I needed to work for myself. I needed to figure out how to make it in this world. I didn't ask anything for government. I didn't get anything from government. But over time, they just kept taking more and more of my pay, more and more of the revenue that I earned. And it cost me more and more to hire people. And the regulations were so high to the point where I finally just said, I'm going to sell, because it's just harder and harder to make money, harder and harder to hire people. That was back in the 90s. I'm sure it's even worse today. It's more difficult today. So my administration will be focused on trying to help the middle class, the voice of the people that's not being heard right now. Because the rich have access. The poor have access. They have advocates. Nobody's advocating for the middle class. I don't think either of these two big party candidates will advocate for the middle class, because they don't understand what the concerns are that you and I understand are.
Let me ask you, we see the I-93, we'll take the Medford situation where the potholes are creating. What would be your plan to fix the highways, the roads, the bridges, from things falling from the bridges, landing on vehicles?
Yeah, it's the same plan we use for schools. It would be a transparent, non-political approach. We'd go out there and really get a sense of what are the priorities, what are the fours. If four is the worst, what roads are fours? We wouldn't wait for a catastrophe to strike, for a hole to form or a pothole to form in that sense where it becomes a public safety issue. We would also, in a Cahill administration, stop expanding either road programs or public transportation programs until we can fix what we have. Because the next shoe to drop will be on the trains, the public transportation. We're not keeping up maintenance on those lines, but yet we're still committed to expanding north of the city and south of the city. When we don't have the money to do either that, and keep up with what we're doing without raising the prices of fares. We're overcommitted, and we're building new projects like HOV lanes and expanding roads into private developments when we're not focused on the public roadways. And I think that's been a missed opportunity for the Patrick administration, but it actually started when Charlie Baker was in government back in the 90s. We put so much money into the big dig, we diverted revenue from bridges and roads in the rest of the state, and we have no real plan in place to start the process of rebuilding our infrastructure. We're going to do for transportation, I hope, what we've done for schools, which is have a process and a plan in place that will attack the problem at its worst and then start working our way down and do it in a fiscally responsible manner so we're not just throwing money at the problem.
Here in Methuen, we have a police officer who was allegedly accused of misspending funds from the federal government. There was a hearing held in the commission behind closed doors. Should open meeting laws be closed, or should all open meeting laws be open to the public?
Open meeting laws should be open to the public. When you're dealing with a personnel issue, though, the law protects that person from having that open, and it's up to the parties. So when we have retirement board meetings, we have them open to the public, except when we're dealing with someone's personal life or problem like that. Eventually, once the solution comes up, then it should be open. So I believe in protecting someone's privacy if it's a personnel matter, because I think we need to have that. At the same time, when the decision's been made, I think that should be a public decision so people know what happened behind closed doors.
Due process, equal protection, and the right to be heard and the right to be treated fairly within everywhere in government.
Yeah, that's my philosophy. That's why we need an independent, experienced elected official to manage this state. Someone who's going to look at problems not from the right, from the left, from the party perspective, but from the people's perspective, who wants to focus on solving problems. Not reforming government, but fixing government. Reforming just means moving the deck chairs around. Fixing it is fixing it. Fixing a problem and coming up with a solution, being willing to say no, but then also, once you've said no, to go back to the drawing board and come up with another solution. People want us to solve problems. I've been doing that my entire career, at the local level, the county, and the state level, and I'd be honored to do it as governor, because I think this state is a good state. It just needs good leadership, willingness to work hard, and look beyond the tried and true solutions that haven't been working to come up with real solutions that will work.
And for everybody that's watching that wishes to reach out to you, help you hold signs, donate to your campaign, volunteer, how do they do that? Where do they go? Who do they contact?
If they have a computer, they can go online, timforgovernor.com. So it's timforgovernor.com, all one word, and they can check us out. They can sign up to volunteer, donate, or look at the positions I have. If they want to call us, we're in Quincy, and we have an office in Holliston. 617-479-0367 is our number. We have 2 headquarters, so we love to have volunteers. We're manning the phones every night. We're holding signs in the mornings and afternoons, and we're working really hard so that I can meet as many people as possible. They can look me in the eye, and they can see whether or not they think I'm the man for the challenges ahead.
Well, we wish you the best of luck on the campaign trail.
Thank you, Hector.
You've been watching Tim Cahill here on Behind the Scenes, candidate for governor. My name is Hector Montalvo. We'll see you next time when we go behind the scenes to ask the tough questions, bring you their responses, and we let you decide. Thank you for watching.